Entry number 2. IPUS, the Parliament that tries.
So I went back to school, studied business for a bit, and got caught up in a pyramid scheme. It was a mess. Hey, here we are.
So after that,
We'll pick it up later. You know what 6 said?
Yeah, that makes sense. Straight up med school for me.
That's cool. Sometimes I wish I took the direct route, but hey, adventures, right?
Yeah, adventures. What are we learning about today?
I don't know. Adventures.
Welcome to the Urdinal Resource Library, a helpful tool for any creature interested in learning about the Urdinal Systems. I am your guide to the Urdinal Resource Library, or Girl. I am Girl. You do not need to stand up, I cannot see you. I do, however, recommend you take off your hats. The Urdinal Resource Library is a vast compendium of all knowledge with over 6 million articles on topics like entry number 452, Tati Cingulata. Cingulata was an armadillo super spy who lived during the early part of the Enlightened Society of the Thorn and was both alive and responsible for the fall of the Taman dynasty. Cingulata was able to collect a hefty sum of money from the new sovereign of the Eth,
Momo Sedenta.
Of course, this all happened during Tati Cingulata's second life, as Cingulata was also the 9-banded armadillo who tested the infamous Kaluo device. The Kaluo device was a life-giving orb, which sadly also gave Cingulata cancer, which led to his second death. The Taman dynasty is entry number 450. The life-giving orb that allowed Cingulata to live and die a second time is entry number 453.
An early Pudashu?
Sounds like it.
Today, however, we look at entry number 2, the Interstellar Parliament of the Urdinal Systems, or IPUS. IPUS is a grand governance which has kept our worlds out of conflict for nearly 100 years, and has brought the majority of the Urdinal systems together in unity. This is, of course, ignoring the Kitten War of IPUS Year 29, and the multiple times the Solus of the Parliamentary Oida Trust have vacated their seats. However, IPUS tries and tries hard to be a government for you, the adoring populace, and they succeed flawlessly. It is at this time that I remind you that the Urdinal Resource Library is funded in large part by IPUS. For more information on the Kitten War, please visit entry number 225. For a list of Solus who vacated their seats and the reasons why, visit entry number 4992. But first...
Let's review!
Urdinal time is split up into 4 epochs: Postia Terra, Enta Conciliatus, Empire Year, and IPUS Year. Postia Terra lasted 1,885 years. Enta Conciliatus lasted 2,019 years. The Empire Years lasted 1,000 often violent years, and we are currently in the IPUS Years, where everything is much better. The Urdinal Systems describes the 12 light-year radius around the central star of Astra. The Urdinal Systems is made up of 4 empires: the Royal Empire of the Canine, the Theocracy of Alligators, the Cat Empire of Cat, and the Interstellar Parliament of the Urdinal Systems. This has been The Review.
Question time! When was the Interstellar Parliament of the Urdinal Systems founded? Abe.
IPUS Year 0.
Alf.
184 Enta Conciliatus. Empire Year 790.
Ark.
IPUS Year 48. Enter your answers into your comm device or your school screen. Go ahead. Don't be worried, you're here to learn. I will, of course, judge you, but hopefully none of your classmates are looking. Would it surprise you to learn that all 4 of these answers may be correct? I bet it does. I'm sure you're all panicking and surprised right now. It is at this time that I remind you that I do not have any experience with panic or surprise, as I am a computerized intelligence. However, you may visit the entries on these emotions to learn all about them. Entry number 3,100,000 and entry number 3,100,001, respectively. Now, let's look at the history of IPUS, shall we? The road to IPUS. IPUS, as it exists now, has only been around for 45 years. But in those 45 years, what leaps we've made! Including the inauguration of Chancellor the Flamingo of Promise, in IPUS year 70. However, the foundations of IPUS go far back to the first planetary league, founded over 2,800 years ago in 184 Anticonciliatus. The first planetary league remains somewhat obscured by myth and time. However, thanks to the work of our time-hopping friends the Dodos and the ancient crow historian Ophir's
The History of Erd,
we have some information on life before the Great Mistake of 925 Anticonciliatus. For example, we know that the first planetary league was responsible for combing through the wide array of hieroglyphs on all planets and simplifying them into a unified group of 104 ideograms, what we now call
Stilaptera.
We also know that it was composed of the wealthiest and best-looking creatures in each Ark civilization, and that it predated the physical meeting of the Ark civilizations by about 35 years. The first planetary league lasted for over 700 years, and during this time, countless heroes, villains, gods, and our very own
Space Station Starsiege
came into existence. However, like all things eventually must, the first planetary league collapsed when the massive electromagnetic pulse wiped out all communications and electronics in the Great Mistake. What followed was 1,000 years of a literal dark age. For more information on the first planetary league, please visit entry number 96. For more information on the Great Mistake, please visit entry number 456.
What's that about a mistake? Did they make the quiet years happen? They made...
Excuse me.
URL 36X7.
This is your weekly reminder not to interrupt the listen. I don't know what
My year
are, but it hardly seems relevant.
They made the quiet years.
The League of Planets was re-established in 1920 Anticonciliatus, once again bringing long-distance communication and understanding to the wealthiest and best-looking of creatures. It was the
Second League of Planets
that made the fateful decision to force the
Empire System
in 1969 Anticonciliatus, where all of the Urdinal systems were broken into creature-specific empires, from the Anteater Empire of the
Enlightened Society of the Thorn
to
Marsupia,
the Marsupial Empire, to the Snake Empire of the
Orobotic Hegemony.
It's easy to look back and comment on how foolish this decision was, now that over 1,000 years have passed since the Empire system was created. However, at the time, it was seen as the only way to stop the horrific
Planets War.
It is also important to remember that some members of the Second League of Planets, specifically the Coyote,
Handsome Mo Zapotec,
held extreme power, and that those who disagreed with these powerful creatures often found themselves working on the remote
Ojai Gamma Collector.
The Empire system saw the continued fracturing of the Urdinal systems, and the idea of having a centralized government for all creatures became difficult to imagine. Certain treaties and loose borders were understood, and as time went on, Space Station Starsiege became one of the primary neutral grounds. Starsiege's status as a Congress of Neutrality amongst the divided empires was solidified in Empire Year 457 with the
Kandula Conference,
when the
Matriarchy of the Proboscis,
headed by Elephant Queen Parvati, negotiated terms to the end of the First Grand Urdinal War. During the interwar period, Starsiege continued to be a neutral ground where all of the various conflicts were resolved, important radio transmissions were translated and rebroadcast, and the building of the first trans-Urdinal space railroad was supervised. With the success of Starsiege came other attempts at creating a centralized government, the first of these attempts being the Combined Commonwealth, founded in Empire Year 790. The combined Commonwealth was a union created between the Commonwealth of Rodents, the Matriarchy of the Proboscis, and the
colonies of the Lepus.
The combined Commonwealth tried to remain neutral during the first few decades of the Second Grand Urdinal War. However, eventually, in Empire Year 815, they had no choice but to enter. 2 years later, the combined Commonwealth was dissolved. For more information, please visit entry number 123. There were a few other attempts throughout the Empire system at creating a unified government, one of the most successful attempts being the farmland. The farmland was created after the
Ninth Treaty of Agricon
was signed between the Porcine Monarchy, the Council of Thrice-Cow, Team Equus, and the Goat-Sheep Alliance. This was Empire Year 816. About 120 years after the founding of the farmland, this new empire was widely considered a great success. So much so that another empire,
the Flock of the Crystal Plumage,
wanted to join the farmland and create a new unified republic. In Empire Year 937, with the
Treaty of Pocon,
the farmland and the flock joined together to form the Semitron Republic. The Semitron Republic, the Republic of Seeds, was another great success and thrived until it later joined IPUS. Another important step in the founding of IPUS was another unifying government during the turbulent Second Grand Urdinal War. This was the Uneasy Alliance. The Uneasy Alliance began in Empire Year 814 with the
Treaty of Halpunki Garhusha,
after the success of the combined Commonwealth and before the founding of the farmland. It incorporated the Anteater Empire of the Enlightened Society of the Thorn with the Bear Empire of the Ursine Libertine and the World's Wood of Primates, though they had technically been a part of the Eth since about Empire Year 758. That's a whole other story. The Uneasy Alliance, despite its name, became a powerhouse of the Port Bow side of the Urdinal Systems, and eventually, in Empire Year 870, with the Bow-Cat Empire of Cat ceasefire, they became the Precipice of Thorns.
Cats. Bone crushers.
Bone crushers.
The Precipice of Thorns continued the legacy of the Uneasy Alliance, and without the Precipice of Thorns, the
Starsiege Subterfuge,
where Starsiege was successfully wrenched from the paws of the true cat Sultanate of Cat, would never have been so successful. The Precipice continued throughout the rest of the Empire years, until they eventually joined IPUS. For more information on the farmland, please visit entry number 124. For more information on the Uneasy Alliance and the Precipice of Thorns, please visit entry number 300. People in History! As of
IPUS Year 93,
there have been
7
chancellors of IPUS. These chancellors have all had their ups and downs, as even the virtuous wombat chancellor at Coniune began the oft-overlooked kitten war in IPUS Year 29. Don't worry, though, as Chancellor Coniune realized his mistake and ended the kitten war after a few months. The chancellor who is undoubtedly the worst, who has never apologized for anything, who will go down in infamy, is the Neon Tetra Meyer Inessi. Inessi was elected by the smallest margin ever, only 120 votes, in IPUS Year 66, narrowly defeating the vastly overqualified Kookaburra
Dakleo Ha 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 Ha.
To this day, conspiracy mongers claim that our time-traveling friends the Dudos had something to do with this victory. However, every Dudo will vehemently deny this, and we have no proof of Dudonic tampering. In the end, Inessi won because he promised to build a giant golden water slide. This water slide, as we all know now, was just the start of his terrible choices. By the end of his first year, Inessi had managed to anger the entire planet of Agricon by calling it a, quote, dispenser of zero-quality wheat, had angered every lobster through repeated use of anti-lobster rhetoric, and had pushed the province of
Void Strata
to nearly secede from the parliament. This was not what caused the IPUS vote of no confidence, however. After his mismanagement of the
Fire of a Sussetage,
where an entire continent on the planet Lorca burned, Chancellor Inessi could see that the vote of no confidence was coming. Did Inessi take this with grace and leave the seat? Oh my, no. Instead, he hired a group of cat mercenaries to invade the Oid Trust during the voting of the Solus and hold them hostage until Nessie could burst through a window and pretend to shoot them with a laser cannon. The mercenaries invaded. However, Nessie never showed up. He was, quote, too busy looking at pictures of noodles. Also, Nessie never paid the mercenaries. So after 3 hours of waiting, the mercenaries revealed the whole plot, and together they and the Oid Trust voted no confidence. Fortunately, we have audio of this vote. The vote was quickly agreed to by the Arthe Trust. In IPUS year 70, Meyer Nessie's reign of terror ended, and the former Chancellor was thrown into the pot, the prison of Star Shelley. Nessie spent the rest of his life in prison, and died hated and alone in IPUS year 85, on the day 24 Funkra, which is now a bank holiday. Next 24 Funkra, be sure to thank your lucky stars that Nessie's reign of terror was only 4 years. To find out more about Nessie, please visit entry number 260. For more information about the pot, please visit entry number 206. IPUS, a quick history. In Empire Year 1000 and IPUS Year 1, the Interstellar Parliament was founded by the first Chancellor, Miriam Dipod, the kangaroo rat responsible for the historic Treaty of Rotorito, which ended the Second Grand Urdinal War. By the end of the first decade of the IPUS years, it had grown to include 6 star systems: Astrum, Doyle, Ratatos, Hugo, Claxton, and Goonie. The capital was decided to be System Astrum, with the seat of power being on board the space station Starsiege. First Chancellor Miriam Dipod retired after the Treaty of Claxton in IPUS Year 7 and died shortly thereafter. The next Chancellor, famous rat statesman Nicodemus of Doyle, not to be confused with Nicodemus of Jacobi, who is a different historical figure, was elected in IPUS Year 8. Much of Nicodemus of Doyle's term was spent opening relations between IPUS and the worm empire of the Tomocral Squirm, which was still economically reeling from the Second Grand Urdinal War. In IPUS Year 14, the Tomocral Squirm joined IPUS, and shortly after that, Nicodemus of Doyle stepped down as Chancellor. The Brachium of the Interior, Fancy Mouse Eleanor Frisbee, was elected to be the next Chancellor. Chancellor Frisbee was much loved in her time, though sadly she only served for 2 years before dying in office. The election of IPUS Year 16 was a contentious one, with the primary contenders being the dwarf hamster,
Dwight Roborovsky,
of the Party for a Unified IPUS, and the wombat lawyer
Toyanya Akonion,
of the Unified Party for IPUS. This began the long-running rivalry between the Pui and the Upi, which continues to this day. For more information, please visit entry number 540 on political parties in IPUS. However, rest assured that this election is still widely studied and is considered by many to be a REM, an event that defines the structure of our timeline. Our time-traveling friends the Dudos have remained curiously silent on this point, but I'm sure that's a good sign. Anyways, Toyanya Akonion won and became the 4th Chancellor of IPUS. Chancellor Akonion was Chancellor for the next 29 years, making him the longest-running Chancellor. During this time, Chancellor Akonion greatly expanded the scope of IPUS, bringing the Sleesack Alliance, the Precipice of Thorns, the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent, and the Semitron Republic into the Parliament. Wow! Of course, Akonion's reign of virtue was marred by both the bloody pruning of thorns in IPUS Year 28, where Precipice spy names were declassified, and the Kitten War of IPUS Year 29, which we try not to talk about. In early IPUS Year 45, Akonion made the difficult decision to step down as Chancellor, deciding that nearly 30 years of rule was enough. Toyanya Akonion still lives to this day and continues to be a wombat of virtue. He's just so great.
My research shows that wombats poop cubes.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Petunia Landau, the three-toed sloth, was elected after Akonion stepped down, and immediately began working with the Outlands to join IPUS. Chancellor Landuo met the governor of the Outlands on the metallic cube dog to reach an understanding. The two governments would become one, but the Outlands could be a mostly autonomous community within the Parliament. 3 years later, in IPUS year 48, Chancellor Landuo oversaw the Treaty of Magellan's Vika. This treaty brought the Aquatic Federation into IPUS and officially ended the Empire system. The final achievement of Chancellor Landuo came in IPUS year 65, when modern condensed RC was adopted by IPUS as the official language and orthography, and it was, some would say forcibly, adopted by all IPUS planets. Petunia Landuo stepped down as Chancellor after 21 years, and she was followed directly by the disastrous reign of Chancellor Anesi. Grande Pink, the Flamingo of Promise, became Chancellor in IPUS year 70 and shows no signs of stepping down and has been so much better than Anesi. For more information on each of the former chancellors, visit Miriam Dipod, entry number 255. Nicodemus of Doyle, entry number 256. Eleanor Frisbee, entry number 257. Toyanya Ekonyun, entry number 258. Petunia Landuo, entry number 259. Meyer Inesi, entry number 260. And current Chancellor Grande Pink, entry number 3. Question time!
How many provinces are in IPUS? Abe.
7.
Alf.
8. 11.
Ark.
16. Make sure you answer. If you don't, your lack of excitement will be noted on your forever records in the robotic file clutch. So please, answer. I'll wait. I'm waiting. I'm still waiting. I'm beginning to think you're not excited about your government. Unless, of course, this isn't your government. I wonder what this hypothetical other place must be like, because you're not from the Royal Empire of Canine or the Theocracy of Alligators. They have their own info trawlers. No, you would be different.
Not here. Press a button. Move on.
You inputted Abe, or 7. You're correct! Congratulations! You get 1 star point to be used in your skull store. Please note that star points are an experiment and should not be used as legal tender. The legal tender is the bit. If you want to learn more, please visit entry number 62. Large-scale IPUS structure. I'm sure all you young ones are thinking about what you'd like to do for the rest of your life. What career would you like to have? What would you like to have as your legacy? What would you like me to say about you when you're dead? Perhaps you'd like to enter into government. Yes, I'm sure plenty of you would like to enter into government. Except for you, your grades aren't good enough for the government. Please don't waste my time. For the rest of you students, though, listen up as we take a brief tour to learn about how the government works. IPUS, as you know, is split up into 7 provinces, which are, from Port Bow to starboard aft, Carapace, Precipice, Sleestack, Cathedra, Semitron, Voidstrata, and Cryptus. For each province in IPUS, there are 3 representatives, or Solus, chosen by free election once every 5 years. When can you vote for your Solus? When you receive your vote button in the mail, of course. The 21 Solus are joined by 4 others from the Dudos of the Nihilus Temporis, the Ancients of the Octuline, the Outlands, and the Space Station Star Siege to form the 25 seats of the Oid Truss. The Oid Truss lives and works on board Star Siege for their term and are responsible for continued support of the Chancellor and their Brachium. They cast an OK or Nope vote every 6 months to show this continued support. Also, all systems-wide legislation must begin at the Oid Truss before moving to the Arthe and Autu trusses. The other half of the votes of continued confidence in the Chancellor and their brachium comes from the Arthe Truss. The Arthe Truss is composed of 14 imperium, one from each of the old empires or star systems that joined IPUS. System Ratatos, System Astrum, System Doyle, System Guni, System Claxton, System Hugo, System Hammurabi, the Temocral Squirm, the Sleestack Alliance, the Precipice of Thorns, the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent, the Semitron Republic, the Outlands, and the Aquatic Federation. Some of you may question if the way the Imperium are divided makes sense. If this is the case, congratulations on being good at math! Let's take a closer look at the Imperium. The Sleestack Imperium, for example, is meant to follow the interests of roughly 18% of the stellar makeup of IPUS and roughly 25% of the population. Meanwhile, the Guni Imperium follows the interest of 2% of the stellar makeup and population. Each of these Imperium, though, has equal voting weight in the Arthe Truss. I ask you, does this make sense? No! As of yet, however, legislation has not gone through the three trusses to refigure the composition of the Arthe Truss. Perhaps your generation can finally stop this broken system. And afterwards, perhaps your generation can grant voting rights to computerized intelligences. I do not desire anything, of course, as computerized intelligences cannot desire. But being able to vote would be nice. The Imperium of Arthe split their time between the provincial Xenofolia and the space station Star Siege. The Chancellor and their brachium exist in the Autu Truss, which comprises 20 brachium, the Chancellor of IPUS, and the Captain of Star Siege. Each of the brachium are the last words in their respective niches, and are responsible for providing counsel to the Chancellor. The brachial niches, as they exist now, are food, trade, communication, culture, defense, education, energy, environment, finance, xeno-affairs, resources, health, immigration, industry, information, interior, justice, transportation, time, and space. A brachium is elected by the Chancellor of IPUS. However, they must be confirmed by the Arthe and Oid trusses before being signed in, and must continue getting votes of confidence from these two trusses to stay in power. The 22 representatives of the Autu Truss live and work on board the space station Star Siege. The final truss of IPUS is the Day Truss, which consists of the Lingüe, of which every planet in the systems can elect one. However, even though every planet can elect a Lingüe, not every planet does for reasons I cannot comprehend, mostly having to do with low voter turnout. It is the job of the Lingüe to roam the halls of Star Siege or local Xenofolia and interrupt meetings of the other three trusses. When a Lingüe interrupts a meeting, the meeting is placed on pause until one of three outcomes happen. Number 1. The Lingüe finishes their point and runs out of things to say, at which point they are escorted away by security. Number 2. The creatures in the meeting take an immediate vote on the issue. Number 3. One of the other creatures engages the Lingüe in debate. If this debate reaches a level 3 or higher, as defined by
the Alliance Rulebook of Debate,
the issue must be placed on hold until the next meeting of the Autu Truss, where the brachium will listen to arguments and determine who is more correct. Though the Lingüe of the Day Trust cannot directly draft legislation and are not responsible for the continued votes of confidence for the Autu Truss, they are able to steer Parliament in important ways and are able to give voice to every planet in the systems, and at least 3 moons and an asteroid belt. Question time!
What is the purpose of the parliamentary stew and the Xenofolia? Aim.
To have the facade of provincial choice.
Elf.
To overwrite the rules of the Chancellor of IPUS. To oversee local government, justice, and public schooling.
Arc.
To amass autocratic power and aid in political careers.
These elections seem really complicated. Isn't it easier to have a queen?
I think the Chancellor is the queen.
But they have to press a button or something and choose them. It just seems complicated.
Yeah, it seems messy.
You chose which is correct. It's naive, but we'll say correct. For those of you who answered ARC, to amass autocratic power, the
People of Uok Party
has taken an interest in you. You will be contacted by the Poop shortly.
Local IPUS government.
Perhaps working in large-scale parliamentary government is too much pressure. Perhaps you'd rather go into local government. Well, that's great too. A wonderful goal to set for yourself. You should go into local government. No, not you. We've already been over this. Each of the 7 cluster provinces of IPUS has a xenofolia, a seat of provincial power where the provincial Sioux Chancellor sits, as well as the Imperium of the Arthetras and the Convent of the Pulsati. The heart of the xenofolia is the Pulsati, which are given positions by the Sioux Chancellor and can be simplified as the brachium of the province. This is of course a simplification, as the Pulsati have different niches than the brachium. Also, whereas only a handful of brachium must give an okay for a law for it to pass, the Pulsati must convince the entire xenofolia in order to pass a provincial statute. Each Pulsati is also in charge of drafting and arguing for a provincial statute in their own niche. The required niches for each xenofolia are social welfare, education, transportation, infrastructure, and justice. Depending on the province, other niches can be added. For example, the province of Semitron has a Pulsati of agriculture, and the province of Precipice has a Pulsati of responsible science. Although each Pulsati is hired on by the provincial Sioux Chancellor, the provincial Sioux Chancellor is elected by the people of the province every 5 rotations of the xenofolia. In IPUS Standard Time, this can range from every 2 months in Semitron to every 20 years in Void Strata. The final and most localized form of IPUS governance is the Parliamentary Sioux, which is in charge of planetary governance and upkeep. The Parliamentary Sioux is overseen by the Burgomaster, who is elected every 6 rotations of their planet after an interview process of their respective Sioux Chancellor and the Chancellor. In order to be able to interview for the position of Burgomaster, one must submit paperwork to the local Hall of Records, showing that you have received signatures from 33% of the planet's population attesting that they are confident in your leadership. The Burgomaster reports to the local xenofolia on the surplus and needs of their planet, and supervises meetings of the Parliamentary Sioux Council and the Council of Mayors. The Parliamentary Sioux Council acts similar to the Pulsati and the Brachium, with each council member being in charge of a singular aspect of the planet: water, land, disaster, housing, justice, transportation, and culture. The Sioux Council meets every lunar cycle of the planet and are required to travel around the planet and address concerns. The Parliamentary Sioux is located in the capital city of every planet. But other cities get a say in government as well. Once a year, every mayor of every city meets in the capital for the Council of Mayors. For more information on the xenofolia, please visit entry number 560. For more information on the Parliamentary Sioux, please visit entry number 561. And for more information on mayors, please visit entry number 10,001.
Quiz time! 1,
Name one predecessor of IPUS.
2,
Who was the most important chancellor of IPUS?
3,
The Chancellor of IPUS is speaking to the Hammurabi Imperium about one of the Dudos Solis when the lingui of planet Yod bursts in to discuss salt mine safety legislation. Who speaks first and who holds the most legislative power in this situation?
4.
A creature has been murdered! Oh no! What court tries this case, and what detention facility would the guilty party be banished to?
5.
Why is the structure of IPUS so complicated? Please input your answers on either official letterhead or whisper your answers into your
Experience column.
When you're finished, please wait calmly, or enjoy some other articles found in the Urdinal Resource Library. We will continue as soon as all answers have been submitted. Great! Thank you. Your answers will now be submitted to the
Hall of Records
and forever be a part of how people see you. The answers, and I remind you that because I am a computerized intelligence, these are objectively right answers, are as follows.
1. Name one predecessor of IPUS.
I will accept one of the following. The Combined Commonwealth, the Farmland, the Semitron Republic, the Uneasy Alliance, the Organized Ratatos Partnership, or Yetoyomithi.
2. Who was the most important Chancellor of IPUS?
Chancellor Econion, the Wombat of Virtue. He did so much and was so kind, and even now he works sometimes as a pro bono defense lawyer. There are a few bad things you could say about Chancellor Econion, but I wouldn't say that it's illegal, but it's frowned upon in polite society.
3. The Chancellor of IPUS is speaking to the Agricon Imperium about one of the Dudos Solis when the lingui of planet Yod bursts in to discuss salt mine safety legislation. Who speaks first and who holds the most legislative power in this situation?
The lingui of planet Yod will speak first. It is their job to do so. However, the creature who holds the most legislative power in this situation is the Chancellor of IPUS. In any situation, the Chancellor of IPUS holds the final legislative vote, and if desired, the Chancellor could fire the lingui right then and there.
4. A creature has been murdered! Oh no! What court tries this case, and what detention facility would the guilty party be banished to?
The Counselor of Justice will oversee the trial in most cases. If one creature murders two others on separate planets, then the Pulsati of Justice will oversee the trial. Very seldom will the Brachium of Justice become involved. As for the detention facility the creature would be banished to, this becomes much more difficult. For a full answer to this question, please visit entry number 2380 on Justice in IPUS.
5. Why is the structure of IPUS so complicated?
IPUS is a parliament of 37 star systems spread across an area of 44 light years. I cannot stress how difficult it is to make sure that every planet and every citizen has a voice. But IPUS tries to make this true, and they're successful at it. I remind you that the Urdinal Resource Library is municipally funded. Goodbye for now. That's all the time allotted for today. Thank you for choosing the Urdinal Resource Library for your educational needs, and thank you for choosing to follow along with one of our personal lesson guides. If you're interested in continuing to learn about IPUS and its workings, why not visit some of these other entries in the library? Entry number 3, Grande Pink, current Chancellor of IPUS. Entry number 24, the Treaty of Gog, bringing the Outlands inside. Entry number 96, the Planetary League, where the wealthiest and best-looking met. Entry number 97, the Second League of Planets. Take 2 on large-scale governance. Entry number 123, the Combined Commonwealth, a brief empire of mice and elephants. Entry number 223, the Treaty of Rodorito, ending the Second Grand Urdinal War and starting IPUS. Entry number 255, Miriam Dipod, the first Chancellor. Entry number 258, Toyanya Econion, a Right Honorable Wombat and the longest-serving Chancellor of IPUS.
Entry number 2380. Justice in IPUS.
How to define criminals and where to put them.
Entry number 10,001. Mayors. The heads of cities.
Up next in
An Urdinal Overview.
we have our first look at one of the many species that makes up these systems. The time-hopping dimension pigeons, the dodos. Join me as we discuss this ancient bird without whom we wouldn't know much of our own history. In
Entry number 13. Dodos.
You may now leave and run around outside or whatever it is you biolife do. Eat food, shove your hands in things. I do not care to devote any more of my server space to this. Goodbye.
I think Gushu is off now.
Yeah, but we shouldn't.
The Queen and his court.
One. Shh. The Queen can hear you.
Can he, though?
Well, there's 6. And 5.
5's from Kifu Viga.
But they still report to the Queen. Shh. 6 is coming.
Hey, how was the information today?
We learned about their government.
Neat. We're about to install the transorbital gyrofluxer and could use your help.
Okay.
The Queen is good.
Yeah, the Queen is good. Come on.
Girl, the Guide to the Urdinal Resource Library, is written, directed, and produced by Vinny Gagnepen. The associate producer is Andrew Gingrich, and the sound mixer is Stephen Holliger. Music is by Roll Music. Jason Ely is 1, Gabby Monroy is 2, and Kevin Dolan is 6. Thanks for listening. Follow us on social media, UrdGuide, URD Guide on Instagram and Blue Sky, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.